Welcome to Heart Talks. The purpose and intention for these talks is to inspire, empower, and to bring a higher perspective and community awareness with topics not only in real estate, but also in finance, relationships, wellness, and spirituality. So get ready and enjoy as we share our next episode on Heart Talk. Welcome everyone to Heart Talks. The purpose of Heart Talks is to bring insights and a higher perspective, not only in real estate, but business, finance, wellness, and also spirituality. And today we have the pleasure of having Brooke here, Brooke Teran. She is owner of TFA Champions here in the RE/MAX Champions building. And today, Brooke is going to share her story with us, not just about business, but also about herself. And I find it very interesting because Brooke is third generation that comes through this building and comes through this business. And I think it's very fascinating, not only because she is a young leader in this community, and a lot of times we have a lot to learn from the youth, from the future generation that will be coming through. And welcome, Brooke. I'm so happy to have you here.
Yes.
Thank you for saying yes.
Of course.
That's part of showing up, is saying yes. And earlier we had a talk with your mom, but what I really wanted us to bring forward here in this Heart Talk for everyone to hear your story is where it all began for you. Because as we all know, your grandmother and your grandfather were also part of this business. Mm-hmm. Then your mom, and then now you. Mm-hmm. And I know it wasn't like, okay, when I was 3 years old, I wanted to do this type of business. But so I'm just curious and interested about, where did it begin for you? Where did this journey start?
I think to simplify it, it started with TFA Champions, the financial services that my mom added into real estate. Okay. And I think I had a block into going into real estate and going into the family business because of my own wounds that I had, my own mother wounds, and that kind of kept me from wanting to go in and work closely with my mom. Mm-hmm. But she added in financial services, and I was nannying before, and the 9 to 5 for me just wasn't working anymore. Right. And I jumped into this opportunity. Mm-hmm. And everything from there was just kind of kept me interested. I was intrigued with financial services, intrigued in the business, and it kept me on that path. But I would say financial services was the bridge for me to come into the family business and to start working with my mom closely and being here with her. And it also allowed me to meet other individuals who would help guide me on this path. So it helped me meet my mentors. It helped me meet the women who would be supporting me along the way. So it kind of just happened naturally. Mm-hmm. And then, after the fact, I see why I was meant to work with my mom or, be a part of the family business.
Mm-hmm. So thank you for sharing that. That's very interesting. So what comes forward for me here is, you're 23. We all share that. You're 23, and I remember when I was 23, I don't think I was thinking about running a business and, being a leader and just really showing up, because you've been very proactive in social media. I mean, you're all over the place. You're on fire, actually. I'm like, there's Brooke. And you're really showing up for yourself. And I'm wondering, I know when maybe the younger you, at one point where you saw everybody in your family being in this entrepreneurship, was there a certain time when you thought, okay, I'm going to join the family business? And then how did you know it was going to be financial planning? Because I know you had tried escrow and mortgage. Mm-hmm. You were here a couple of times trying to figure out where it was you were going to lead. And so I'm wondering, when did you realize, yes, this is the platform. This is where I want to lead?
I think what happened for me is the reasoning behind what I'm doing. That's the biggest thing. Mm-hmm. So for me, escrow was, I worked in escrow, but there was no purpose behind it. There was no why I should be there. Okay. And I feel like I was looking for, everyone, there was looking for your purpose, your passion. And I just felt it click with financial services. And the reason for that is, well, one, I finally saw that being in this environment with my mom, it's healing our relationship. And so I saw that that was the purpose of me working with her, was to heal our relationship, to heal each other individually, but then together. So I finally matured enough to see that and healed myself enough to see that. And then with financial services, the way I want to do business, I would say it's with the feminine. It's embodying the feminine. Yes. It's bringing light to our womb space and the importance of it, and the importance of the feminine in everybody, not just the feminine or a woman, but the masculine as well. And I see that by what I'm doing in financial services, like I said, I don't see other people doing it quite in that way.
Okay.
And so I see it as an opportunity for me to step up and to lead in that way of leading with, with love, with light, with healing, with integrity, with assertiveness, with remembering how powerful women are. And so I think that's the two main reasons of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And then also what comes to mind is when you stand up for yourself, you stand up for other women.
Absolutely.
So when me standing up for myself and loving myself, growing myself, evolving myself, it shows other women that they can do it too, and that they can believe in themselves, and they can, work through their insecurities, but then love their insecurities to shed light on them and transform them. So I think that's what led me to really embracing financial services, I would say.
Beautiful. So what I'm really hearing you, and even in your language, is obviously the inner work. I almost felt like TFA came along when you were ready because of that internal work that you've been talking about. And even in your speech, even the way you're showing up, your demeanor, everything. Tell us a little bit about that. How did you begin to dive into spirituality? What was the aha moment, or what was that event or circumstance or person that you realized, like, okay, this is my path?
I think what really woke me up was seeing my mentor now, Francisco Jara, speak. And I was like, what is that? Like the way he's carrying himself.
Yes.
There's a different essence. So that was the first thing that I was like, well, there's something more. So I think my mentor, him, and then Annabelle, she's my mentor, currently my mentor right now. They have been amazing guides. But I think also just before that, seeing how my self-love radically changed my life. Because before, I struggled severely with eating disorders, with self-love, with self-esteem. Like my rock bottom transformed my life. And I hit my rock bottom at a very young age, at maybe 17 or 16, where I would say just hitting rock bottom, that's what led me to this path.
Okay.
And it had to do with, again, the eating disorders, the really like going the opposite way of hating myself or not loving myself, and physically deteriorating and almost dying, to be like, what am I doing? What am I doing? And that shifted me to, okay, we're not doing this anymore. Like, we're gonna change our lives. And it led me down the self-love path. It led me down the healing path. It led me down affirmations and just opening up my mind up to more. And then when the time was right, I met the mentors, and everything that happened after that, supported me on this journey. But yeah, I would say what led me to the healing path was literally just hitting rock bottom.
And we've heard that a lot. We go through an experience or a circumstance or something really painful, and for you it was that, and for others it's something else. And it's that moment when you said you hit rock bottom, and then you make that decision or that choice, because it's a choice. It's the willingness to want to shift, to want something better for yourself, almost like a rebirth, or it is a rebirth.
It's a rebirth.
We're dying, that old person is gone, and we make that decision of, okay, this is the way I want to now lead. This is the way I'm going to be showing up. And I really hear that in you. And I think that was probably my very first question is, you realize that, and then here comes along this platform of TFA, and it sounds like you were very clear on how you wanted to lead and how you wanted to gift certain things to this world. And then, of course, the teachers and the mentors showed up because we were ready, right? When we're ready,
Exactly.
they show up.
And it's challenging too.
And very challenging.
TFA champions and having my own business, it pushed me way out of my comfort zone, way out of, like just that comfort. I was at, self-love, I've healed.
Sure.
But then it shows you, no, you haven't. Like there's so much more
Things
work
come
to
up.
do.
Yes.
So that's business for me is a vehicle for awakening. And I see that, and I've experienced it, and I see how it's transformed me, and it continues to transform me and grow me and expand me in ways, and it's constantly expanding yourself. So I see how business is that thing for me.
And that's beautiful. That's almost like that was the gift, and you experienced it so early in your life. You said 17, but you didn't realize that until a little bit later, right? And here you are at 23, and you're very clear on your purpose and how you want to show up for yourself and for others. And I find that so amazing, and that's why I was inspired to have you here and share your story, because a lot of times most of us don't know that. Wow, here's this young girl or woman, I'd say lady, beautiful lady here, showing up, and we see you all over social media, and what is that fire, and how did that fire start? And like we say, our mess is our message, but it's a very strong message. And I believe that you were given that because you were ready, and to show up is our choice, and I believe you made that choice. Thank you for sharing. Now, if you were to go back and think, you're going back, you're looking at your childhood and your, teenagehood, and now you're here today. If you were to say, wow, at that time when we were experiencing something, we didn't recognize it, but now we can look back and I say, I am so grateful, so grateful. Thank you for this person or for this circumstance or this experience that came through. What would you say that you are grateful for that? Because we recognize it as a gift now. Like that is that transformation. What would you say that would be for you?
I think it's the same thing. I think it's the hitting that rock bottom. I think, you have to know, sometimes, not all the times, but sometimes you have to know the complete opposite to know how high you can go, or to know the beauty on the other side. And I think I had to, not everyone should experience this, but for me, my path was experiencing complete lostness, not loving myself as a woman, not the eating disorders and having to overcome eating disorders. If you are going through one, or if you've experienced one or anything like that, it is a battle. It is a battle that not a lot of women win, and a lot of women pass away from it. So having to go through that and having to recover from that and do it all myself, and just the psychology behind the disorder, everything, like going through that experience, it rebirthed me, and I'm grateful I went through it, even though it wasn't fun to go through at the time. And I wouldn't be the person I am today if I didn't go through that.
Yes.
So I would say that's the biggest thing, to be able to come back from that and heal myself through that. Now that I've gone through that, I can do anything.
That's beautiful.
Since I've been through that, I'm like, it's okay.
You almost had to go through that and come out of it, but I think it's beautiful that you were able to recognize that and come out of it the way you did, in such an empowering way, not just for yourself, but for others. And here you are being of service. And I think that's very important, and it's a very important story to share about that, because I'm sure there's plenty of people out there, anybody that might be watching this, that might be experiencing that. And through our experience, because we lived it, we're able to speak through it. And I almost feel like that is what you're here today. You're here to speak through it, because we understand that through that process, through that bridge, we were able to gain the strength and the courage. And that's how I see it. It's like, wow, such courageous leader you are right now, standing up and also moving it forward. And you have chosen the platform of TFA, but really how you envision to bring that forward into this community is just, I'm just curious to continue to see you grow and evolve. And talking about growing, just going into that, the topic being grateful, and we're growing. So there's the aspect of growing in the physical realm, and then there's the aspect of growing in our internal realm. So growing as far as TFA, obviously we've seen you, expand your business. So talk a little bit about that, what your plans are for the business, growing that in a physical way and just showing up as a leader in our community.
I think for now, I definitely I think there's growth for the sake of growth, but then there's growth that's purposeful.
Yes.
So I definitely want to stay tuned to the growth that's purposeful. So I'm open to building a team. I definitely see it more as growing slowly in terms of who is going to be on my team and who also wants to be a part of it. I think it's kind of just getting out how I do business, the way I do business, getting myself out there more, going to more speaking events, putting myself in those positions, which can be scary, but then knowing it's going to grow me. So that's what I see physically, is kind of just creating the foundation, creating the basis for what I can build in the future.
Yes.
I would say that.
Beautiful. So the higher perspective, and what I also hear is being more conscious and building it organically in a way that's going to serve not just the business, but the whole.
Yes.
And coming through, and it looks like you're doing a fabulous job. You had your wonderful event. We were all there, and we celebrated, the business, and and it's beautiful. It's beautiful to watch that and just witness that. Now let's talk about the internal growth.
Okay.
I know you've been really, really going deep into that, and also looking at things, like I said, in a higher perspective, bringing insights into your awareness and just being conscious about everything that you're doing. Talk about that a little bit.
Okay. I think with internal growth, what comes up for me is this whole journey is self-accountability. That is what has just gotten me to really grow fast, is it's all self-accountability. This whole journey is yourself, your emotions, your projections. The way you view the world is a projection of your woundings, of your mentalities, the things you've been through. And so if you're journeying towards truth, like ultimate truth or ultimate clarity of mind, clarity of heart, you really have to take a look at yourself and not point the finger, but point the finger back at yourself and say, okay, why do I see things this way? Why am I judging? Why am I insecure about this? Why am I triggered by this? Why does this still hurt me? And it's those things that allow you to grow. So even with a mother wound, I'm sure everyone, has that, unless you've grown up with a perfect mom, but
and even so, right?
Even so,
we'll still find some defects.
Exactly. So it's holding accountability though, and not blaming. That's the big word that comes up for me. Not blaming the outside, not blaming other people for your internal state. So that's been the biggest growth for me, is just not blaming anything, not blaming my mom, not blaming my dad, not blaming other people, and realizing that it's just where I was at too. And then what I can do to help and to serve myself and others is healing myself. Because if I can heal myself and not be triggered by my mom or my dad, I can show up for them with love, true compassion, not my own hurts blocking us. So that's been the biggest internal growth for me, is self-accountability and self-compassion. Self-accountability, self-compassion. With self-compassion, when you do find those things that trigger you, or those mentalities that you have, oh shoot, I am judging, or oh shoot, I am projecting, it's being compassionate and forgiving yourself. And it's okay. That's just where we are at. We're not going to, view from that lens anymore, but loving yourself through it, because it's hard. It's so hard when you feel those things come up and your automatic thing is to shame yourself.
Yes.
But that's the cycle you have to break. It's breaking the shame cycle into compassion. So those two things.
Well, thank you. And what I'm really hearing is, absolutely responsibility, taking responsibility for our actions, our choices, and our responses. Yeah, that has been a big one for me as well. I think it's, like you said, it's very easy to point the finger and, or it's out there versus in here. And that's what I'm really hearing, is that learning to just kind of observe, create that little space and observe, and press that pause button, because sometimes it's hard for us to press that pause button when we are in that reaction. It's very nice to say that when we're calm, But when someone triggers us or we feel that upset or that anxiety or that anger, and then just really looking back and say, okay, is that mine or is that something that I need to step back and look at? And so I feel that you're so wise in that right now, just, where you're at, just learning to do that and practicing that on a daily basis, not just at home, but in the business. That's really tough to do. Like, give us an example of that. Like, maybe what has been your biggest lesson since you've been here at TFA Champions, where, you're in business, and how would we handle that? What would that look like as far as maybe an upset or a trigger, or something that we have to deal with, and how we could manage that? Maybe a simple example of that.
I would say this will have to do more so with working with people. So I used to be triggered by someone I worked with, and that person would make me just be like, oh, like, I don't want to be here. Oh, like, this isn't comfortable. Like, how could anybody want to be here, right?
Yes.
So I would have that mentality of like, I wouldn't want to work here. And that was me triggered though. And I was like, oh, wait, like, it doesn't, he's not doing anything to me.
Right.
Like, nothing's happening to me. So why do I feel this way? Because I'm taking it personal, and I don't need to take it personal. So that's something in business of being like, okay, I was taking that personal. Why was I taking that personal? And I had to heal that wound of like myself and realizing I was projecting. And then from that work, now I was able to show up with that person and not be triggered and just be like, that's just where this person's at, and it has nothing to do with me. Nothing, what other people do has nothing to do with me. So that was the biggest thing in business, is realizing other people's behaviors, their thought patterns, their actions has nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
And that's been that one.
Yeah, it's almost like a shift, right? You recognize that shift, and I think that's probably the biggest lesson, I think, for all of us, is the triggers are actually our biggest gifts too.
Yes.
Because when we're recognizing that it's building up, it's bubbling up, and then when we realize, wow, that person said something and it really annoyed me or really triggered me, and we all have that where we feel it coming up and we're like, whoa, what was that about? But I think the beautiful thing is understanding that we could choose to respond to that. We could choose how we're gonna receive it. We can choose how we could either not say anything or respond, or just step back and just think about that. And that is so hard, I think, in business. We all want to react. We all want it quick. We all want results right away. But having that consciousness or that presence to that moment, understanding like, what's going on with me? Let me just stop for a while, take a breather, just breathing. And then
realizing it's coming from ourselves too. It's not from others. And then it's like, oh, that's game changer. Being like, okay, this is my reaction. Where do I need to work on this with myself? So
that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Any suggestions, tools, or practices you can suggest for someone hearing, obviously what you do that helps you move through this when it does happen, what we could do to move through it that you found that is working for you?
I would say, again, that self-compassion. Radically accepting that your projection of reality is a projection of your internal world, and to know that with wherever you're at, it's to accept it fully, but then if you do want change, to allow the change and allow yourself to grow, but still don't discount where you're at, if that makes sense. Still love and accept exactly where you're at, but know that if you're wanting to grow and change, it only comes through accepting exactly where you're at. Getting time and space for yourself.
Yes.
So making sure you get alone time, downtime, you rest. If you're looking for a tangible guide with working on yourself, the Gene Keys.
The Gene Keys, yeah.
That's my biggest teacher. Gene Keys. And then, just self-accountability. That word just rings so often. It's just self-accountability for everything.
Yeah. And so do you journal for the self-accountability, or how do you handle that?
For me, it's contemplation. So it's just...
Talk about that contemplation. What is that? Some of us haven't heard that,
So contemplation is just thinking. Let's say you've had a long day and you haven't had time to really sit with yourself. So at the end of the day, sitting with yourself and thinking through your day and thinking through your reactions, thinking through how other people acted, how you acted, and just saying, like, okay, I acted this way because I'm tired, or I acted this way because, or I snapped at my mom because from our childhood I had this wound, so then I still don't feel seen or heard. So it's contemplating those things.
Yes.
And sitting with them and just thinking through your day. So I would say contemplate your day. Even in the middle of your day, contemplate it, of how you're moving through it, how you feel when you're moving through it. And so just thinking to yourself, I would say.
Almost like taking an inventory or scan,
yes.
an inventory of how your day's going, or how it played out, and then what we're responsible for, or how we played it out as well, and maybe things that we'd like to shift.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. So tell me a little bit about here. I know you're working with your mom, and TFA Champions is growing. What are your visions for TFA? Like, you have this platform and you get to create it and mold it. It's like playing with clay. How are we going to see Brooke going forward? I mean, we could talk about TFA Champions, but really you're the head, you're the leader, just really setting that foundation, in which I really hear it's very important to you to set it in a way that it's going to support you and everybody that comes and joins TFA Champions, and also gets to know Brooke. What is your vision, and what is that foundation and culture that you're looking to expand and build?
I think what comes to me is feminine leadership. So really leading in a way that's not self-sacrificing, that's unapologetic, that's not burning myself down and deteriorating myself for the sake of work, like a different type of leadership. And I'm sure there's other women around the world doing it.
Yes.
But just that feminine leadership of also listening to the great mother, whatever you believe in. So listening to a higher power, listening to what's greatest for the whole. And what's greatest for this community, what's greatest for yourself. So I think vision is just continuing to cultivate my spiritual connection, my own healing practices, my self-love, everything like that, so I can show up in a different way, in a greater way, and remove my own limitations, because we always put limitations on ourselves. It's not other people, it's ourselves, and continuously finding those limitations I put on myself and getting rid of them and realizing it's not real, it's not true. So leading in that way. And then I feel like I'm already kind of seeing it, but other women want to work with other women who have that essence. And all women, we want sisterhood. We want that collective sisterhood. We want to be uplifted. We want to be loved. We want to feel seen and heard. And we're so powerful. And in the society that's like highly masculine and toxic masculine and unhealthy masculine, it makes us forget how powerful we are. So creating an environment where women can come to and feel like they can express themselves, their creativity, their magic, their power, and not be in an environment where they're suppressed or they're not allowed that expression. So I think it's just, a lot of feminine energy, a lot of women empowerment, or women healing and women's growth that I want to attract and grow.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's wonderful. And some people out there, they'll listen to the feminine and masculine. There's been a lot of talk on the feminine and masculine. Maybe you could share a little bit of what that feminine energy is, maybe the qualities or the essence of the feminine versus the masculine, because I know, people might think, well, I'm masculine, I'm in a man's body, or I'm in a woman's body, but just give a little bit about that. Like, what do you mean exactly by that? Examples. Like with the feminine essence, what is that like? If I don't know anything about that, what are you speaking to in the feminine essence?
With feminine essence, I think it's just has to do with receptivity, receiving. It has to do with loving, open-heartedness, compassion, strength. It's a lot of things. Strength, courage. It's just so much. And for me, what I believe in, and everyone believes in different things, but everything comes from the void, the great mother. And the masculine is birthed out of the great mother. So I think it's just has to do with remembering who we are, remembering the power we hold.
Yes.
And yeah, for someone asking about, again, the masculine and feminine energies, we need both. It's not saying one is greater than the other. We need to balance both. But this feminine leadership is needed right now in this time. So there does need to be a focus on healing the feminine and healing the feminine in everybody, in the masculine as well.
Yes.
In feeling, in communicating, in feeling your emotion. So that's, maybe you can expand on that, but that's kind of what comes to mind for me.
Yeah. So, you know, for me, what I would say, and I hear what you're saying, definitely, it's that creativity, that softness, that kindness, the compassion, but also having that fire and that strength to show up. And for me, it's almost kind of like a dance. You need the feminine to be able to create and birth new projects and move, not just from the head, but connecting the head to the heart. And then the masculine is the action. So we can't be all action because that doesn't work. We've already learned that in the past. That's the old paradigm, the work, and
exhaustion.
We burn out and we end up being sick. We end up getting sick. And I think that's what's coming forward is now in this whole era after COVID is we're learning that there's a lot of mental health, a lot of illnesses out there because we haven't been allowed to move into the feminine, which is the self-love, the compassion, the really healing ourselves and being aware of our wellness and our mental health of the way we were going is no longer working for us. So that feminine is that softness and learning to also be in that place of receptivity, of that self-love, loving ourselves, meaning doing things a different way, really looking at what is it that is no longer supporting us and serving us. But we still need to be in that action because we need to get things done. But at the same time, how can we move in it in a graceful way that it's supporting not just ourselves, but the whole?
Yeah.
And so that's the balance. And that's where, you know, for me, the feminine and masculine, it's a dance. It's having the balance of two and also being in that self-empowerment of strength, but also coming in from a place of service, of kindness, of humanitarian. And not just serving for the money and the abundance. It's the whole, you know, we're all moving together in wholeness, in harmony, in balance.
And showing up for ourselves too. Like it all starts with like showing up for ourselves and loving ourselves. And I think that's the feminine quality too of like us first. Like the mothers, us, you as a mother, my mom as a mother, you guys can only show up for your kids if you show up for yourselves.
Yes.
And we forget that. We as women, we're nurturing and we're giving and we want to love and we want to help, but then we deplete ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's reclaiming that of no, like I need to take care of myself so that I can show up for you guys, for the whole, in a better way, in a more empowered way. So I'm not depleted, so I'm not exhausted, so I'm not wounded.
Right.
So putting ourselves first.
And coming through with our beautiful gifts that we have.
Yes.
Our beautiful gifts of that grace, of that femininity, of that kindness and love towards ourselves, and then extending it out to others. Well, I know we could sit here all day and talk about this, but I just want to thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being open and vulnerable. And I know it wasn't easy, you know, sharing about, you know, when you were going through your eating disorder, but how that empowered you to show up in your gifts now. And for those of you that don't follow Brooke, please follow her. She's going to be a trailblazer. She is a trailblazer already. We're seeing her in social media. And I just look forward in witnessing more growth from you and evolving in the beautiful person that you are. Thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing yourself and your love with all of us here at RE/MAX Champions, TFA Champions, and on this Heart to Heart Talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.